Goofy. All right, just make sure. All right. We back, y'all. We back. Hey, yo, what it is and what's good, y'all? Welcome back to 280 Plus, the social media podcast where I take the conversations off the timeline and go beyond the post. I'm your host, Los Def, and I'm back here for episode 220 of the platform. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to any new listeners. If you're new to the channel, if you're new to the Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I need you to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, rate us on audio platforms. If you want to leave a comment below during the conversation, any feedback is appreciated. Leave a comment. And if you know anybody that's interested in the content, right, hit that share button and send them a link, right? So, yeah, we are back, y'all. We're back. I'm happy to be back. I kind of started this week getting into the swing of things with my man Levi. If y'all know, we are big Game of Thrones fans, so we are back on to our other podcast, the other podcast I'm a part of called Recap and Record, and we are back covering the new Game of Thrones spinoff series, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So it was good. It was good to kind of get back with Levi and just kind of chop it up. And that show is a little bit interesting because it's a different kind of Game of Thrones show. There's supposed to be a little bit of comedy. It's a lot shorter. There's not going to be as much. There's going to be action as we've seen in some of the trailers, but it's not going to be as intense as some of the other series. So we're going to be, we're back with that only for like 7 or 8 episodes, I believe. And then, we might have to find something else to do, get into, but we'll try to incorporate other things related to TV, when we do those episodes. But, I did take a little bit of a week off. I had to mourn the loss of a couple things. I guess, one, I had to mourn the playoff loss of my Packers and try to get through that, man. And I'm telling you, man, like being a sports fan, it's just tough, bro. It's just so tough because especially like playoff football and especially when you feel like your team could have won the game and they get so close only to kind of fall short. And then so I'm glad football season's over. I don't have a basketball team, so like I don't foresee myself, having those same type of issues come basketball season. So I don't know if we'll be missing too many more weeks or whatever. But yeah, I just noticed that, yeah, like with the Packers losing and me talking about the Packers covering them, it'd be hard to come back with the content. So hopefully we back on track with that. But also too, I did want to say, and some of my family members watch this or listen to me, but I did want to say RIP to my uncle Richie. That's also too. I was mourning the loss of him, and I'm not gonna say like I was like super close with my uncle, but um, his just I would say that his death just kind of represents just certain things. You know what I mean? Some people know this about me, but I come from actually a really really big family. You wouldn't know it because I don't live near my relatives. Most of my family lives in Philly. That's majority of my family like lives in Philly. And but I was, I live in a smaller city in Pennsylvania, so I didn't really grow up around like my cousins and uncles and aunts and stuff like that. But I did. My dad made it a point to make us visit there often. So I have lots of memories with my cousins and my aunts, uncles, and other relatives and things like that. But I come from a really big family where my grandma was the oldest of 11 kids, right? So my grandma passed away in 2023 now, and now this is one of her little brothers. So of the 11 kids, I think there's 6 left. There's 6 left. There's 2 boys, 2 men, and then 4 women, right? And Yeah, yeah, like I said, most of the people that we've lost, it was in my adulthood. I think I had one of my uncles passed away when I was a teenager, one of my great uncles. And and yeah, so it death is just a part of it, but like when you come from a big family, it's just kind of, going to events, it's always like this who's who and of seeing everybody. And that's the unfortunate part though. Like it's the nice part about funerals, but it's the unfortunate part is that that's the only time that you can semi guarantee that you're gonna see everybody in your family, when it's a funeral. And then the only time you get to fellowship and eat, break bread with your family a lot of times be the repast, and then go in and spend time with people afterwards. So that was definitely the best part, but it was sad, partially too because my uncle Richie didn't have no kids, right? So I don't really know fully his situation and what that entailed. I would assume that like maybe he just had trouble, instead of like assuming that he can't get no woman or nothing like that. I would just assume that he just couldn't have kids. And so it is a little bit sad there, but like it just makes you realize that like when situations like this happen, like legacy is so important. Um, and I know people, nowadays with all this like relationship content and stuff like that, people be they kind of downplay certain things like that, like legacy and how when men talk about that type of stuff. But no, it's like, when I go to a family gathering, and like I said, my grandma was the oldest of 11 kids, so like my dad is like the oldest like of his generation, right? And then I even have a cousin, it's my aunt's, my dad's sister. Her daughter is like the first of that generation. I belong to her. I belong to that generation. And so like it's funny because talking about Game of Thrones and stuff like that. When I go to my family gatherings and things like that, it's like a who's who. It feels like some Game of Thrones stuff because like we have one big kingdom, right? We have one big family, and then there's like all these houses. I mean, I would say all these individual families and houses in between, and then like it just goes generation to generation, and it is a beautiful thing overall. But it is unfortunate because I had so much fun like seeing my cousins and spending time with them. Like I was literally in Philly for a funeral. I was out there for like 12 hours, what I mean, because I didn't want to go home. Like I didn't want to miss that moment, because I don't know when next time exactly I'm gonna see my family again. We did talk, well, a lot of us talked a big game about like, hey, we gotta do a cousins thing, and we gotta reach out to each other and do something. So hopefully in 2026 we can pull something together. But what I noticed that is that like as our family got bigger, because like I said, if you look at it like, and even though my uncle Richie didn't have no kids, but like, and so maybe even if you like just exclude him, but just kind of think of like all these different subset of families within our family. And so like, because I remember when we used to do like big Thanksgivings and big like I remember like big events, like big family reunions, big cookouts. And then we kind of got away from some of that. And I think it's because all these subsequent generations started having way more, like a lot of kids, or like certain people started having way more kids. So like it does become a daunting task, but like I feel like we got to make it happen. We got to make it happen, and hopefully we do. So yeah, rest in peace to my uncle Richie, man. It was definitely you man, your presence, like he was always like a fun loving guy. Everybody, he was just a mainstay. Like that's one family member that you knew he was going to be at every event. And I think maybe the fact that like he didn't have his own like immediate family, that might be why, that might have played a role into why like he was always the steady piece. Like you could always guarantee that Uncle Richie was going to be at something, right, and having a good time. And so like I thank you, Uncle Richie, for just having a moment of bringing us together, again. And it's crazy too because I was in Philly a couple weeks prior to that, and I went to a comedy show, and I talked about it on the last podcast, and it was weird. Like my video had kind of cut off, so I couldn't really talk about it. But when I talked about going to see Tommy Davidson, and I just popped up on one of my aunts, like I knew she might be home. I just kind of popped up on her, and that was the day that he passed. And like, so when I talked to my aunt, I remember she was telling me how, your uncle is gonna be, we're having a family meeting trying to talk about, what to do next. And then lo and behold, like on my way home from Philly, he had passed away because then my dad called me like, hey, X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, nah, that didn't happen yet. Like they about to have a meeting. He's like, no, son, like he passed away. And I'm thinking like, wow. So like, I don't know. I don't take that necessarily as a sign of anything, but it's just like a wild coincidence. But yeah, man, it was like I said, good to see everybody, and I'm back. I'm back here. You know what I'm saying? And then like I said, man, reuniting with Levi, doing the recap and record. I feel invigorated again. And we out of slumps, but like now it's double time. You know what I'm saying? We doing content for two different platforms. So we back on the grind here in 2026. So good way to start the year. Other than that, before we get into this episode is going to be very sports heavy. That's kind of what I got for y'all, but I do have a couple of different little headlines and things to talk about. I did have some mess that we could talk about maybe at the end. But most of this is going to be playoff football. We talking about coaching vacancies and kind of yeah, like how some of these games played out. What are the implications? Where do we go now from here with some of these teams? All right. So so yeah, before we get started though with the football stuff, there was one other little headline I did want to discuss. And I remember when it was right before the New Year's, probably in December or at some point. Hot 97 made an announcement that Ebro in the Morning was going off the air. And I follow different content creators, and I was kind of keeping track of the buzz and how people felt about it. So there is a content creator I follow. His name is Demiza, and he must have and I would just assume that he has some type of friendship with Ebro, because he was kind of talking big on Ebro, like oh man, like they're Hot 97, they're probably gonna regret it. They let go of good talent and things like that. Like he's talking him up, but like from my experience and what we know, like the culture did not like Ebro. Like the culture was not for Ebro, and because he was not necessary for the culture, there's many documented things out there that talk about how like Ebro was not even for New York, right? So where he was, where Hot 97 is based out of is in New York City, and as much as a hip hop head that he claims to be, a lot of New York artists talked about how they didn't feel that Ebro extended the olive branch. Like he was not letting New York artists get up there, and that's the thing. Like that's why I'm not Hot 97 is not the only reason why. Like on these big stations we hear nothing but trap music and stuff like that. He's it's not his fault, but he could have done a lot of different things like to kind of curb things the other way. If you think about like big artists in New York City in the last like 20 years, and like you can name one, a handful, but like and maybe 20 years is going back a little bit too far, but like in the last 10 years, think about who are the big superstars of New York City. You know what I'm saying? Maybe even last 15 years since 2010. Like who are the big superstars from NYC? And like the numbers are small compared to what it used to be. So like Ebro could have been somebody that was really putting on for New York or helping to put on for New York, because one, that's your home base, and why not show love to the people that are listening to y'all first? You know what I'm saying? Like yes, Hot 97 might be nationally syndicated or it might be in a lot of different markets, but like think about who the core audience is. That's New Yorkers. And when you got New York artists that don't fuck with the morning DJ and gotta, they might appear on Hot 97 on other shows, but like when the main morning show don't want to show no love, it kind of goes a long way. So So Demisa was talking, big, like, oh man, we're gonna be missing something. And I'm thinking like, nah, I don't think nobody feels that way. And Demisa's not blacks either. So and Ebro, I don't know what Ebro is, but I would feel like most black people did not really mess with Ebro like that for real, for real. And so we got some good news. Some good news. And again, I'm not even from New York. I'm from PA. But I think it's good for the culture. And again, we might see a New York artist break big soon. I mean, in the next couple of years. But they announced that the Kid Mero, right? Mero from Deezus and Mero, he's been doing a lot of content over the years. Um, even though Deezus and Mero, like that show doesn't exist anymore. I don't know any details about like why that doesn't exist. I don't know if they had a fallout or if it's just like moving on. But like seeing the announcement that Mero is gonna be the new, because everybody's wondering like who's gonna take over this morning slot. And they tried to announce that some random people was gonna take it, or these random people got hired, and they was making a lot of jokes about that. And then come to find out, maybe they were saving it for the end or saving it for later, but finding out that the Kid Mero is gonna be on the Hot 97 morning show, that's big news. And like that's what you call making a move to forward the culture. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody more new. Yeah, I mean, in terms of different candidates, like, they talked about Joe Budden possibly being on Hot 97. They talked about this and that. So yeah, it's gonna be, but yeah, it's the Kid Mero. So real, very, very New York decision, very good decision, and he's bringing Kaz with him. So if Kazim, I forget his last name, but he used to roll with Rory, and he used to be a part of that crew that put on Heading Palooza. And then Kaz, he has been on Flagrant 2. Like when Flagrant 2 first came out, it was Andrew Schultz, Kaz, and Akash Singh. So yeah, brother, another brother. I don't know exactly where he's from. I think he is from New York as well. But yeah, man, it's a good vibe. It's good to see. And like I said, man, hopefully these guys can continue or to make at least headway into pushing the culture forward. You know what I'm saying? And when it comes to New York artists and the New York music scene in general. So that's it in terms of like headlines, like quick headlines. I did want to talk about the playoffs though. So let's get started, man. So yeah, and leave a comment below anything I talked about prior to us getting into it. Just leave a comment below, chime in to the conversation. Let me know what you think. But yeah, man, this year's playoffs has been a mix of like close games and blowouts, right? So I don't want to talk about the wild card round. We know what happened, man. The Packers blew it, right? Like they had it in their grasp and they blew it. And I would say there's a couple. Matter of fact, we will talk about it real quick. So just to get that off my chest. So the Packers, um, it's funny because Jordan Love had a great game, right? Jordan Love balled out for real. You know what I mean, having over 300 yards passing, having 4 touchdowns, having no picks, he balled out. It does seem like he stalled out in the third quarter. The third quarter is how we lost that game. I mean, even though, yeah, it's people had to score and stuff like that, we lost that game in the third quarter. One thing I know about in football, I don't think that football is rigged necessarily, right? I do now. I'm starting to think that refs do play a role in how games are like kind of decided more and more, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's like it's not scripted. Like we don't know exactly what's going to happen, whatever. But I do know about patterns, right? So I've watched enough football to know the pattern. And there's an old saying is that you got to put them away. You got to put them away, right? Don't leave nobody hanging around. You got to put them away, right? So that's kind of how the Packers lost that game. So the Packers went into the half with a 21-3 lead. I was mad that we missed the field goal, right? It was a 50-some yard field goal, but it's like, all right, it's neither here nor there. We got an 18-point lead. We get the ball, but we have to score. Like if we don't score in this first drive, it could be bad. And lo and behold, I think we went 3 and out on that first drive right after halftime, and I knew we was gonna lose. Like at that moment, I knew we were gonna lose. and the defense still played well in that third quarter, but um, offense couldn't get going. It felt like we was shooting ourselves in the foot. The offensive line could not pick up any blitzes or any protection. So Jordan Love had no time to throw. We had no running game in that third quarter. And then we didn't put up any points. So then it's like we're playing to try to get out of this game. And since we can't run the ball, it's gonna be hard to get out of this game. And then we know what happens. Fourth quarter, we had a lead, we lost the lead, we took the lead back, and then we lost it again. And then in the last possession, there was a couple drops. There was a couple half run routes, from receivers, and the quarterback does get some of the criticism, but I would feel like in terms of his performance, I don't think he's Jordan Love's not to blame. I did put some blame on Matt LaFleur, but also I think some blame goes on to the defense as well because the defense had no answers either. The defense was just they were letting Colson Loveland go, run roughshod on them, and they were going crazy. So yeah, so it was disappointing, and immediately, so we're gonna talk before we talk about games of the last round. We're gonna talk about these coaching vacancies. I think that's a good segue because when we lose that game, immediately I'm thinking like, oh, that's it. Like Matt LaFleur lost his job on that because not only did we lose that playoff game, we lost 4 games going into the playoffs. So Matt LaFleur literally ended his season with a 5 game, if you count the playoffs, a 5 game losing streak. Horrible, horrible way to finish. A lot of late game like implosions and things like that. Now, granted, we were a very injured team, especially when you talk about the production of the starters. Like it ain't no hypothetical like of like, oh man, if he was healthy and then we find out like the guy only played a couple games anyway. Nah, like we lost big impact players from our team, and it took our swagger away, it took our drive away, and so I just thought immediately like Matt LaFleur was gonna get fired, and I was okay with it. Immediately, I was okay with it, and I'm thinking like, dang, we're gonna hire somebody big, right? And because John Harbaugh had got fired. Um, After John Harbaugh, that was actually the last big name I could think of because I don't know about you, but like when you have a team that is kind of set up to win, you know what I mean, and like we see that they can have success, you don't want to go like with a brand new coach, like a inexperienced coach. You wanna get somebody with some experience. But I don't think that John Harbaugh would have been the answer for us because people criticize that he doesn't get the most out of Lamar. Like he hasn't done enough with his team to get the most out of like Lamar Jackson when he had him. So like we could face the if the Packers would have brought in John Harbaugh, we could have faced those same issues, right? We could so after him, it would have been some like upstart guy or some like maybe college coach or something like that. That would have been maybe a viable option, but like there was no big name that was like a guarantee, like, oh yeah, that's who we had to hire. So when we decide to bring him back, I wasn't that upset because I'm thinking like, yeah, we do need a little, we need continuity and like we need health. I think our season looks a lot different if we're healthy. You know what I mean? Or if like certain players were not hurt, because yeah, nobody's gonna be fully healthy, but like it makes me jealous when I look at teams and they got their starting quarterback and they got all their edge rushers and they got cornerbacks and stuff like that. Like we just got to stay healthy. So prior to, and then actually another job had opened up. And I'm gonna put that here though. But in terms of and we'll talk about some vacancies that already been covered, but then we'll go through the vacancies first and then also give some speculation as to like who might be taking some of these jobs. All right. So the New York Giants, right? The New York Giants job was open. We saw John Harbaugh get hired to the Giants. I think that's a huge, huge move for the New York Giants because they need stability. They've been trying to go the route of hiring that upstart, new coach. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to Sean McVay. You know, if you could find a young guy that can kind of slide in and make your team a winner, everybody's been doing that. You know, you got the Sherman Vays, you got the Kyle Shanahan's. You know, Matt LaFleur is from that tree, and he's kind of like that example. You know, you see him here, maybe even Nick Sirianni. You see it happen, and that's what people want because they want the guy that can be on the team, you know, or could be the coach for 10 years, 15 years, you know. Um, they've always tried to hire somebody that like an unknown guy, and it just has not worked out. So hiring John Harbaugh, that's a huge job. That's a huge job to take the New York Giants job. But one thing that we're gonna know is that I think John Harbaugh is gonna get the most out of that defense, and they have a lot of good defensive weapons. He's gonna have to get a good offensive mind in there to kind of help navigate some things, but I know that they're gonna be a solid winning team. With a guy like John Harbaugh, it won't, you won't hear the pressure about him winning Super Bowls unless like if Jackson Dart is developing and like Jackson Dart individually shows he's amazing. That's the only time like that noise is gonna be good. But I think the Giants are fine with being just a winning team. Like they would like I think well, I wouldn't say they would fully trade the last 18 years with the Giants because the Giants won two Super Bowls in the last 18 years. But I think that if you could take like just some of their perennial success, I think the Giants would take that in a heartbeat. And so that's what they get. They get stability. They're gonna get some perennial success with a guy like John Harbaugh. Um, the Pittsburgh job, that is a huge job, a huge, huge job. And then Mike Tomlin, we know that he stepped away. And a lot of people were kind of speculating that like, did he really step away or was he forced out? And people, I need to find an article about this, but I remember a few years ago when he was talking about stepping down, and then the whole conversation about him stepping down kind of dissipated because he kept saying like, all right, like he wanted to kind of coach until TJ, like allegedly he wanted to coach until TJ Watt retired, like that was like his guy, you know what I'm saying? But he was talking about stepping down a couple years ago. So like him stepping down now, especially when like bro, he would have to go through the cycle of like again another quarterback search. They had Rodgers as a stopgap option, but like that wasn't a long-term solution. So like him having to go through a quarterback cycle again, even though like they've wasted a lot of years of not drafting a new quarterback, like I don't think he could handle that. I don't think, I mean, especially just being mediocre as they are. Like I know that stat is cute that he never had a losing season. Bro, he ain't like yes, technically those could be winning seasons, but like we all know, man, Pittsburgh ain't been the same ain't been the same since Big Ben and all them was there, but like they've underachieved vastly. So it was good that he's kind of stepped down. They need some new blood, but like who knows? A lot of people thought like maybe there'd be like a nice little punch to the gut if they would have signed John Harbaugh, but obviously we know that didn't happen. But I haven't even heard about the Pittsburgh job or who's a possible candidate for that. So we'll see. We'll see. Baltimore, another huge job, and again, coaches like John Harbaugh and then even Brian Billick before that, they've made that a premier job, right? They've only had, in my memory, they only had head coaches, right? They might have had somebody in between Harbaugh and Billick, Brian Billick, but like I don't remember it. So like they've made that into a premier job, but I'm wondering, like, I don't know if they're gonna hire within. I haven't really heard any noise about that. But whoever is getting that job, they are inheriting a franchise quarterback who may or may not be around for much longer. We'll see in terms of like being on that team. But it's a lot of responsibility, man, and like Baltimore fans, they're gonna want a stout defense no matter what. That's the identity of that franchise, and I don't think they want to shy away from that or they don't want to go away from that. So we'll see though if we get some updates on that. But I haven't seen anything about the Baltimore job. Atlanta, Atlanta is also a big job too because you guys just think about the market of Atlanta, and it looks like they have hired or they're leaning towards. I think they've hired Kevin Stefanski, and obviously that's making a lot of people upset. because they're looking at Raheem Morris versus Kevin Stefanski, and they're thinking like, well, he hasn't done anything better. And Stefanski has two Coach of the Year awards. He had a weird situation in Cleveland, especially with that roster construction, especially with the quarterback position. Deshaun Watson plays a role in that. That was all in his tenure, and it got kind of weird. But like I think Kevin Stefanski, I remember when I think he was an offensive coordinator for the Vikings. He was a good coach, and he showed that he deserved that Browns job. It's just his time with Cleveland was so up and down that it's hard to say like what his real strengths are. Um, I think that because he knows, like we've seen glimpses of him being a winner, even like making the playoffs a couple times. I think there's some hope there, but I think I would agree for the most part. I'm also puzzled as to like why do you go from like how does a coach with a bad record in the last several years how do they keep falling up? And I've said this multiple times to people, and this is why like people that play football, like young athletes, and then even like the washed up dudes that you might have went to high school with, like bro, if you don't get into coaching, like because if you can make it right as a coach and you can move up the ranks, and the thing is, moving up the ranks is like taking a chance and like coaching at a damn college, like a small D2, D3 school or something like that. Coaching in random places. But like if you get into the head coaching cycle, whether it's D1 football or if it is NFL football, if you get into that coaching's world and cycle, bro, you will have a job for the rest of your life. You're gonna keep falling up for the rest of your life. You know what I'm saying? Unless you have some weird improprieties or something like that, guys be falling up. So Kevin Stefanski, even though very, very, very mediocre at his job, very mid, he fell up. He fell up, and we're seeing how that looks now. What else? What else? Who else? So we'll see. We'll see what that entails. Miami Dolphins. It looks like they are hiring the Packers' former defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley, which it does make me upset because in the last 2 years, I think Jeff Hafley has transformed our defense into something. It's given us a toughness to our defense, and we have like a certain tenacity about us. I think the scheme sometimes with Halfley got a little bit weird, and especially when it feels like they don't make adjustments. Like that's the most frustrating thing too when you watch your football team and and you believe that you have a good coach that's leading the way, but then when you feel like they're not doing anything different, it's one thing. It could be two things. It could be the coach just like not seeing it and like or not being too rigid to change, or it could be like the coach does not trust his personnel. I think in some instances it could be the latter. It could be that he didn't trust our personnel. He didn't trust the players that we had on the field to kind of to make adjustments. Yeah, so the Jeff Hafley hiring from Miami, that definitely opens up a void for the Packers. And you know, I'm a Packers fan, and I've seen my team have a lot of bad defenses, and this really felt like a step in the right direction. And so now that feels it creates a void for the Packers, and now it feels like they're at square one. I heard there is like an assistant that could become the DC, which his name is like Covington. He was our defensive line coach. People believe that Jeff Hafley might pull him and make him his DC down in Miami. So it all depends. One of the front runners, though, for the Packers defensive coordinator job is Raheem Morris, former coach of the Falcons. He's been a decent coordinator for some pretty decent defenses. But I was watching Pack a Day. Pack a Day is a Packers podcast with a man named Andy Herman, and he kind of pointed out though how even though Raheem Morris is a name, like like some of his defenses, the way they ranked over the years, even when he was just a coordinator in different places, it was pretty mid. It was like middle of the road. It wasn't like exceptional. Some people feel like, we might circle the wagon and get Jim Leonard to be our DC. He is like the passing game coordinator with the Broncos. So he was the coach of Wisconsin for like an interim basis, and like we couldn't hire him. He didn't want the job. He thought he was gonna be the head coach long term in Wisconsin, and then he didn't get it. And then he has come to the NFL, so we might poach him. I don't know. I don't know. I'm looking forward to. Hopefully, it's somebody that like. I like the scheme that we're playing right now. I just currently do. So hopefully, whoever they hire is somebody that kind of keeps that similar scheme, but is able to kind of utilize what we have, but also like the draft means a lot, free agency means a lot, and all the people that we may have to cut to make some space. Like we'll see what happens. Um, Let's see real quick. Okay, next one. The Las Vegas job. Man, man, being the coach of Las Vegas is just a dumpster fire, man. Like it is, it is. You have ownership that's willing to spend money and willing to make moves, but like that just has a long history of some like poor mismanagement of things, and it just seems like the Raiders are cursed or something, right? Because even when it feels like they're going in the right direction, you know what I mean? When they had like Josh Jacobs and then you get the Henry Ruggs incident, and then all right, we're bringing in John Gruden and Matt Mayock, and we about to revolutionize the game, and then there's a scandal and just like a falling out, a basic falling out, with John Gruden. So John Gruden couldn't even like get busy again. And then what else? Well then, yeah, Antonio Pierce. It looks like and then stuff falls out with him. And then this last run with Pete Carroll, and then how bad it was, him having his son as a coach, coordinator, and like him not even understanding and knowing what he's talking about. Like it just seems like there's not a lot of credibility. There's not a lot of strong oversight. Like there might be some oversight, but it doesn't feel strong or competent. So being man, you could be a big name and you could change the game, but like I think they're gonna go for cheaper than more expensive. They're gonna try to get that upstart, like I said. Um, Tennessee looks like they're going to be hiring Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers. We know we last seen Robert Saleh with the Jets, and we know his fallout with Aaron Rodgers and that team. And I think he could be a really, really good coach, but he just wasn't in a good situation. In Tennessee, he has like a potential franchise quarterback in Cam Ward. They said they have a new stadium down there. They have a very centralized fan base. So like everybody, like if they could win, they could get on board. They have made some bad decisions personnel wise, right? When they started selling off players like AJ Brown and Derrick Henry. And then even running Mike Vrabel out of town. Like, how do you fire a guy like Mike Vrabel when he's the person that got y'all relevant again? And like y'all looked at it like maybe it was just your players, but it wasn't. It's the coach, because we see what he's doing in New England. He's a good damn coach. So they dropped the ball by letting him go. But we'll see what Robert Saleh is able to do, and how he's able to change. And they have a lot of cap space. They have like a lot of cap space that they could really make some moves. Arizona, Arizona, man, that's a revolving door job too. Like Tennessee, Las Vegas. Yeah, these are this section: Atlanta, Miami, Las Vegas, Tennessee, Arizona, Cleveland. Like there were some good jobs, and then these are the revolving door jobs. But Arizona is just one of those jobs where, yeah, I mean, maybe they should not have gotten rid of Jonathan Gannon, but like it doesn't look like they're getting better. Partially is because they're banking everything on a very injury-prone franchise quarterback. I think Kyler Murray is actually he's a playmaker. He's a gamer out there. Like he balls out, but he's always hurt. He's because he's little. He's tiny, man. They have some franchise pieces with Marvin Harrison Jr., with Trey McBride. They got some pieces on the defense, but they're not gonna be. I just don't see them ever being. They always are competitive, but like I don't see them putting it together, man. Like it's gonna take like I say revolutionary players. It's gonna take last time they was like good, and when they became good was those years when they had Anquan Bolden, when they had Fitzgerald, when they had Warner, then they had Carson Palmer. You know what I mean? Like they have to get players like that are gonna get the buy-in. But I don't know. Their draft and develop, if they do have a system of that, it's not that good. Um, so yeah, I haven't heard anything about the Arizona job quite yet, but that's one of those things where you're not expect the expectations are low. You're not expecting much. And then Cleveland. I forget who they were. Yeah, maybe Mike McCarthy was in talks to be their coach. I think Mike McDaniel also. I don't know if Mike McDaniel is like head coach material. Like I think he's a great coordinator. I think he's a great offensive mind, but like there's something about him that just doesn't seem to command like that head coaching stuff. I think people even describe Matt LaFleur like that. Where like he would be like a above average coordinator, but like he don't like holding play. It doesn't feel like he likes to hold players accountable, right? Because like there is something like missing, um, and he definitely is afraid to hold staff available because we've seen him with bad defensive. He's rocked out with bad defensive coordinators for like a season or two too long. He's rocked out with Rich Bisaccia, a bad special teams coach. You know what I mean? He's rocked out with him for too long. So that's where it is. But then I feel like Mike McDaniels kind of falls into that same boat. And like with Cleveland's also just a bad franchise. Like, yeah, apparently they're trying to keep their defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz. That's a name too that we could consider. Like Jim Schwartz, that man knows how to coach defense, man. Like, yeah, I mean, he knows how to coach defense, and I'll give him that. And I would take him for real as well. But the Browns' job is not a desirable job, man. It's not a desirable job. So they're lucky to get who they can. But like it is interesting if like what there was like 10, 11 openings. Like if some of these teams could like turn it around, especially if they didn't make the playoffs, which the only team that made the playoffs out of those was Pittsburgh, and so there's a lot of opportunity for growth for everybody. But obviously then just in general, then they're like with all these openings, then when people get hired and shuffled around, that opens it up for other places, and there's been other like coordinator firings that need to be filled too. So like Packers have their work cut out for them when they have to hire a defensive coordinator, but you think of, the Cowboys are looking for new coordinators. I don't know exactly if it's offense or defense. The Eagles are looking for a new OC. The Lions are looking for a new OC. So, you got guys like Brian Flores who's out there. Is he going to get a head coaching job, or is he going to be a coordinator? That's another candidate that I wouldn't mind the Packers taking a flyer on. So it all depends. And the thing is, though, it's so funny, man. Like you really don't know who your team is gonna hire. You know what I mean? When we hired Jeff Halfley, it was just more like, who the hell is that guy? Like he wasn't even on the radar. And then, he got the job. So we'll see. That's it with the coaching vacancies. Let's switch it up though, and we're still talking about football, but let's get into these playoff games, all right, and what actually happened in some of these games. We'll give a little recap. We definitely gonna talk about Josh Allen, because that man is selling, and I think there's two different perceptions as to like how national media looks at him versus how social media looks at him. So we're gonna get into that, and then all these games in between. So we'll start with the divisional round. We'll start with the Texans versus the Patriots, though. That was man, the it's crazy because the Texans still had a chance to win that game. CJ Stroud. Let's talk about CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is kind of now showing what he's showing, that Ohio State quarterback regression that we normally see from these Ohio State quarterbacks. And he completely shit the bed. He had four first half interceptions in a playoff game. And it was the defense, it was the Texans defense that kept them in that game, forcing three turnovers of their own. They only lost by 12 points. It was 28 to 16. Drake May didn't even play good. You know what I'm saying? Like the Patriots didn't even play good. They just took advantage of some good opportunities and good field position because CJ Stroud looked like he was playing for the Patriots. It looked like he was passing it to the Patriots. Yes, Nico Collins was out, right? You gotta adjust. Dalton Schultz, their number one tight end, he got hurt in the game. So what do you got to do? You got to be creative. You got to run the ball. You have to make throws. The thing is, he wasn't even making throws, man. When I was watching that game, he barely completed any passes. When I look at the box score, like to see how it all ended, he was 20 for 47. 20 for 47. That is horrific, man. That's below 50%. That's horrible, man. So no, there's no excuse for that. 214 yards, 20 for 47. I think he had a touchdown but four interceptions. This is Stroud's now second bad season in a row. And it doesn't feel like it's his second bad season in a row, but it's because they've made it to the playoffs 3 years in a row. 3 years that he's been a starter, they've made the playoffs, but their defense masked all their deficiencies, right? So they know how to win a wild card game, but then when they get into the divisional round, they play some better opponents. They can't. Now they did get to didn't they get to the AFC Championship? I think the year before, like last year. Um, but it's still not enough, man. And I hopefully they don't make any rash decisions and think about moving on from D'Amico Ryans because that's a hell of a coach and he's kind of gluing it together. But CJ Stroud, man, last year when he had a bad season, it was just like, all right, man, that's a sophomore slump, right? And then this year he started out on that same pace, and it was like, oh, maybe CJ Stroud's not that good, right? Like that's how people was kind of feeling, but we don't know. But in that playoff game is like he's showing that he needs to improve, man. He actually needs to get in the weight room, man. I've seen some guys like CJ Stroud got like a very average kind of like chubby fat man build for like he need to get in that gym and he need to increase his athleticism a little bit just with some effort, but he just looks like he's pretty much just a traditional pocket passer back there, bro. He can't run. um and he can't make throws. Like he can't make throws on the run. Like he's struggling out there, man. He's struggling out there. And it's the defense that's carrying them. So the Patriots obviously win and they're going to the AFC Championship game. Shout out to Mike Vrabel. Like I said earlier, like he's a hell of a coach. He's doing it. They got Diggs. Their offense, they don't really got that many pieces. And who knows what kind of cap space they got, but like just imagine what they're gonna look like when they start to like fill some holes on that roster. That defense looks pretty good though. They have some play. They got a lot of playmakers on defense. Carlton Davis. I know they had Carlton Davis. Christian Gonzalez. They got some other guys, man, that's like really doing their thing. But shout out to them and Texans, man. They going home. Going home just like the other teams, right? Um, but let's move on though. The next matchup is the Broncos and the Bills. But let's talk about Josh Allen, man. Let's have a Josh Allen talk real quick. So one of the things that I seen on social media was people saying like, "Yo, who is the NBA equivalent of Josh Allen?" Right? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, "Damn, who is the NBA equivalent of Josh Allen?" And I had a name that I knew would rub people the wrong way because people love this player, this NBA player. He's a retired player. People love him, but I feel like it kind of fits the mold. But I think there is one example better. But I thought once I seen that question on social media, I said, "Oh yeah, he's the Carmelo Anthony of the NFL, right?" So somebody who can put up numbers, who has tremendous offensive success, right? But somebody that can't, they get their team to the playoffs. They're a winner, they're a contender, but they can't do anything. And I don't even know if even Nuggets or the Knicks were real contenders, but yeah, he can get you to the playoffs, but can he win you the big game? And that's what Josh Allen looks like. But then somebody said, "Nah, he's the James Harden of the NFL," and I'm like, "Wow, that fits even better." Think about it: two league MVPs, two players that you know, even whether it's for a season or for a short period of time, was looked at as like, "Yo, the best offensive weapon." On the field, right? Josh Allen was kind of crowned and anointed like the best quarterback in the league because he won the MVP. But like, but also we know like he's kind of like he's kind of mistake prone, and even like Harden, he would put up points, but he's a liability on defense, or he's turning the ball over, or things like that. So yeah, somebody that can light it up, somebody that can put up numbers, somebody that is an MVP, somebody that's revered as the best, but like, bro, they have nothing to show for it in terms of postseason success. And I would say, yeah, maybe Harden does fit that. Maybe T Mac even, but I don't think T Mac won a league MVP. But it's a interesting comparison. But yeah, I think yeah, he might be the James Harden of the NFL. Um, but let's also talk about the perception of Josh Allen when it comes to social media versus national media. So does the national media coddle Josh Allen? Yeah, I think so. I think so because for some reason, like I said just a minute ago, he's been anointed as the league's elite quarterback. And maybe it's because he's the white boy, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like the hood or the culture, we don't give him that grace. We don't make excuses for Josh Allen the way sometimes they do in on national media. I feel like the culture, the hood, social media, you know what I'm saying? I think we hold Josh Allen accountable, man. We see that he's a turnover prone quarterback. We see that he's a little bit reckless. We see um that he's a gamer, but he's not always the best decision maker, right? But also we see that he's still not better than Mahomes or Lamar, or and some people would say he's not even better than Burrow, right? Um, I would say though that Josh Allen does have to shoulder a lot of weight. That roster over there in Buffalo is like real wacky. Like it's a real wacky system, and I just feel like they never addressed the wide receiver position after they got rid of Diggs. They tried to do some stopgap moves. They drafted Keon Coleman thinking, all right, you the future. Then the stopgap was Amari Cooper. All right. That's okay. You know what I'm saying? Curtis Samuel, I think they brought in whatever. That's okay. Khalil Shakir, that's okay. But are those the receivers that like are really gonna help Josh Allen get you to the next level, get you to the Super Bowl? No, I don't think so. This year they put another band-aid on it. They got Brandon Cooks. So they're gonna either have to, find some money and be able to fork some to a wide receiver, or they are gonna have to do their due diligence and draft and scout heavy, scout and then draft heavy so they could find a complementary piece. Um, they got good running back, they got good tight ends, but like they don't have the receiving weapons. But speaking of Buffalo though too, it's just unfortunate is because the fact that the last job I forgot to mention this job was the Bills job, right? It's crazy that they actually fired Sean McDermott. Now I understand not a coach not getting it done and you feel like you had to move into a new direction. That's all understandable. However, Sean McDermott, when he got in there, he snapped a 15-year playoff drought for the Buffalo Bills. A 15-year playoff drought. So they were irrelevant. And even prior to that drought, they might what I think when they had when Rex Ryan was a coach, they might have made the playoffs once or twice, but they were not a factor. They weren't really making no real moves out there. So the fact that you fire a guy who is doing his best, even though like he got a weird roster, and I don't know what role Sean McDermott plays in the personnel decision. I don't know how much GM capabilities he has, but he's doing a hell of a job with what he has in front of him. He developed Josh Allen. I mean, Josh Allen went from like raw prospect to league MVP. That's all under Sean McDermott. And for you to fire him because I mean, yes, they underachieve, yes, but like who are you gonna get that's better at this point, right? Maybe you find somebody, but like who's gonna want to take that job? Because like the Bills have, I guess they have this mindset that like no, they need to win championships. Yes, they do need to erase and get that monkey off their back after losing four Super Bowls in a row, but they're not gonna do it. They're not gonna accomplish that by getting rid of good people. And now you got a guy like Josh Allen that's gonna and that team they're starting from you want them to start from scratch. You have to get a freaking Super Bowl ready coach, and like who out there is that Super Bowl ready coach? You're not gonna like, are you pulling somebody out of retirement? Like it feels like there's not those names no more, like because it feels like some of those great coaches they not coming back. John Gruden not coming back to the NFL to coach. Tony Dungy is not coming back to the NFL to coach. Bill Belichick, like you not get like I ain't gonna lie. I I just said that name. I think Bill Belichick will come back to the NFL, like, cause he ain't that college experiment is whack. So I think he would. I think he might be locked in though. But who you gonna get? Who you gonna get, especially when if they feel like they're not gonna be appreciated even when they get wins, if they don't win the Super Bowl next year or something like that in the next 3 years, which you just gonna fire somebody? Because if that's the case, then you should just keep Sean McDermott. I would take Sean McDermott as a defensive coordinator. I know that. If Matt LaFleur would have got fired, I would take Sean McDermott in that case. But yeah, he definitely could be our DC if he wants. Yeah, I mean, build his resume and go somewhere else and leave us some of the position coordinators and stuff like that. I'll be cool with that. Um, but let's get into that game though. Let's get into that Broncos Bills game. And overall, the game was great. The game was amazing. But here's the thing: when it comes to Josh Allen, when you have four turnovers in a playoff game, you don't deserve to win. I've seen some quarterbacks pull off some four turnover uh uh games where they end up winning, but you don't deserve to win, and because we can't make excuses for him. Yes, that Cooks interception catch controversy that was wild, right? Because and I think what made it wild was the fact that they didn't actually slow it down and show us a replay. They just made the decision in New York, and so that non-transparency makes it feel like oh snap, they controlling the game. It was questionable. I know people are trying to use other examples to compare it to. Apparently, Cooks, yes, he did have it, but the other guy had it at the same time. He just came out with the ball. I guess that would be the ultimate conclusion. People are using like a Devontae Adams play where he was actually caught the ball, contained it, and was like kind of like considered a runner, and then like whether it's a strip or not, because he put his knee down, he was down by contact, and people are using that, and it's like that's a totally different kind of scenario, and I hate that. I hate when people that don't really, you could tell they're not really versed in football, and they talking about all these like controversial possible things. Um, so yes, that did happen, and then you get two PI calls late that put the Broncos in a chip shot field goal range. Yes, those penalties sucked, but we would also be mad if they did not call the penalties. So we can't have it both ways. It is unfortunate that it feels like the referees took away from that game, and it might have took away an opportunity for Josh Allen, but Josh Allen took away his own opportunities. If we think about that, right? So they win by a field goal. Well, they gave up a field goal early in that game at the very end of the first half. Josh Allen is rolling out, mad reckless, ball on the side, like he's not even trying to protect it. He gets stripped, right? Like there's like not even that much time left. He puts them right in field goal range, right? Like especially knowing how deep they were. He fumbles the ball, he puts them in field goal range, and they get a free basically a free field goal right there. So like Josh Allen cost his team. He cost his team a lot of points, and with the four turnovers, I'm not. He don't get the benefit of the doubt. So like, and he has been accountable. That's one thing I'll say about Josh Allen. He has been accountable, but his bad play is what led to Sean McDermott's firing. I think if they lose that game and he plays a little bit better, I think Sean McDermott still has a job. Maybe they doesn't have a good relationship with McDermott, for all we know. But it seems like that was they. It seemed like they were a team and like they had each other's back, but it didn't work out for them. So the Broncos move on. Only unfortunate thing about the Broncos, yes, they have a great defense, but they are going to go into this AFC Championship game without their star quarterback, Bo Nix, their starting quarterback. He broke his ankle like towards the end of the game. It's crazy how that happened, and it's kind of unfortunate. So that's it's just there's a lot of luck and a lot of craziness happening in the AFC side. On the NFC side, it's pretty more straightforward. It's pretty much straightforward. This was the biggest blowout. This was the blowout of the playoffs. And it was the Seahawks versus 49ers. 41-6, the Seahawks scored special teams. They scored running the ball. They scored passing the ball. They might have scored even a defensive touchdown. But they have a really good defense. It seems like, special teams, can you bank on that? Well, it seems like they do have some special teams talent, and then they can win games without Sam Darnold going crazy. Sam Darnold had like 147 yards. He might have like 12 completions. Like, he didn't ball out, but he did what he had to do. The only thing about the Seahawks, they lost Zach Charbonnet now. And so for the rest of the season, that's a big loss, but it's also a loss for them moving forward because Charbonnet next year that's his final year of his contract. So next year is his last year, and if he's getting hurt this late in the season, he's probably gonna miss all the next season, and then that's gonna put him into some pretty precarious free agency talks coming into the following year. So we'll see where that goes. But the Seahawks, it looks like they know how to win, and they get two divisional games because they're going to be playing the Rams. But how did the Rams get there? Well, the Rams beat the Bears, and thank goodness for the Rams. I'm so glad they beat the Bears. I'm gonna say this. Like this game came down to the wire, and let me say I hate Caleb Williams. I hate that dude. Now I do recognize his talent. He's not like he has some talent. I have a lot of reservations about him too because one, as a Packer fan, I'm seeing him. I'm like, bro, he makes a lot of bad throws. He's a very inaccurate passer, and he's really is like a gunslinger. But like athleticism, bro, he got Lamar Jackson speed. Like it looks like he's just kind of trotting out there a lot of times, just kind of just gliding out there. Bro, when he puts his cleats in the dirt and he like drives and he really be running, bro, he cannot be caught, man. He's fast as hell, man. And he does a lot of undisciplined things that you just don't know how they work. For example, right? Like dropping back to pass on a fourth down, running basically 10 yards without like just running full speed 10 yards only to do like a no look turnaround freaking chuck to the end zone. And the thing is, people are like, oh my God, that's an amazing throw. It's it's amazing because he has the balls to make that throw. The throw in itself is not that amazing because with passes like that, if you just play the ball, right? Like it's a duck. Like he's just launching it's not a dot. Somebody said, "Oh yeah, he landed." No, it wasn't a dot. It was the defense thought the play was over, right? Because the Packers got hit with that twice by him, like where he does this thing where he don't just roll out, he runs backwards. It's almost like he does like a freaking naked bootleg, and then he just like chucks it up. And he did that in the wild card round, but he did that at the very end of the season when we played them, and they needed a score to take it to overtime, And he does that at the very end of the game, and it looks like Keyshawn Nixon like blew the coverage. But I literally think that you're kind of accustomed to when a quarterback is just kind of chucking it like that, it's probably gonna go out of bounds, or he's throwing it away, or you know what I mean. And I think the way for defenses to catch up to Kalen Williams is just to say, hey, yo, the play, just play to the whistle, man. Like that play is not over. Because he's gonna have the balls to make a lot of throws that most quarterbacks are not gonna even try. So yeah, he definitely has that gunslinger in him. If he learns how to decipher defenses now, like if he really becomes cerebral, he's doing this all on athleticism. If he becomes cerebral and he can start picking defenses apart, he will be nasty. I mean, I can't. You know, I don't want to have to deal with that twice a year with the Packers. But athleticism, bro, he's got it, man. He's that boy for real, for real. I ain't gonna hold you. He's fast as hell, man. And just the frame, everything, like he's doing this thing. So, but they couldn't get it done. He had 3 interceptions in that game, pretty much costing them the game. At the end, Cameron Curl. Um, the Rams definitely struggled in that cold weather. Going to Seattle, it should be nicer. I don't think it's like warm in Seattle, but it should be nicer for them. But yeah, you could tell the Rams struggled a little bit just in that cold. And the Bears defense is not that great, but they're opportunistic, and they definitely played hard that whole game. They were kind of blanketing these receivers, but Matthew Stafford, I mean, he was making plays when he needed to. Kyron Williams made plays when he needed to. So we're gonna see what that showdown looks like, man. That divisional showdown um, with the Seahawks and the Rams, but I'm going with the Rams, and then on the other side, I'm going with the Patriots. So either way, we are potentially looking at a Super Bowl rematch. Um, yeah, I mean, we can get Broncos Seahawks, or we can get Patriots Seahawks, or we can get Patriots Rams. Right, that would be a rematch as well. So there's a lot of rematches on the table, but overall, man, yeah, good playoffs. Playoff football is always hard to watch because, especially when your team falls short, especially when you feel like your team had a chance, it's hard to watch and it's hard to swallow. But hey, man, it's how the game is, man. And my latest coping mechanism for when I'm sad about my Packers losing an important game, I just say, well, I could always be and then insert team name. So think about who are the worst teams, and you could always say, well, I could be a Jets fan, I could be a Cowboys fan, I could be a Cardinals fan, I could be a Browns fan, right? And I'm telling you, that's gonna make you feel 100 times better if your team loses in a hard fought game, right? But what you think, man? I know this week was very football heavy. We had to get it out, man. I've been kind of reserving some of this stuff, but we talking a lot about. There's a lot of coaching vacancies. I thought it was important to get into that. Just on the music side and culture, we talked about Kid Mero being named the host of the morning show, the Hot 97 morning show, and then rest in peace, man, to my uncle Richie, man, for real. Family was brought together. We definitely got to run some stuff back, man, though, in 2026. But what you think about this week's episode, especially with it being sports heavy? Leave a comment below. Any feedback is greatly appreciated. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications. Leave a comment, share the content with anybody that you know. All right. This is episode 220 of the 280 Plus podcast. I'm your host, Los Def, and I'm out, y'all. Peace. Come on now.